We used to go down to the railroad tracks across the main street, two sets of tracks. Sometimes two trains would be going by at the same time, stopping all traffic, one in one direction, one in the other. And there was a gatehouse there, a shack with a gate man in it. His name was Paul, and he had to manually lower the gates when the train before the trains come, so that to stop all the traffic. And he hung out these little lanterns at night that were like the old burning kind. He had to light them and hang them out. This was like the pre-digital, pre-analog days. And and he told us a story about the Midnight Express, which would come through, sometime in the middle of December, early middle December, uh, and it was a converted, huge, one-of-a-kind steam engine, and I guess it burnt coal, but then they converted it to burn fuel oil, and they said it would do over 100 miles an hour. And the Express did during the holiday season was pick up toys from certain points from all the way down Georgia, maybe beginning of Florida, and all the way up, and then drop them off at Salvation Army sites and small towns for toy distribution for needy children and families. And and he told us about this engine and this train, and we wanted to see it. We didn't believe it was a true story. So one night we heard him talk, and he said he got a call that the Midnight Express was coming through tomorrow night. Usually comes through like 1 or 2 in the morning. And every once in a great while, you would hear this high-pitched whistle and this rumble and this roar that was like unmistakable. And late at night, this screaming, mournful whistle, and it would come through. And so we made plans. We went to bed with our clothes on, and my friend snuck out on his porch roof from his bedroom window and climbed down the cherry tree next to the porch. Threw his boots down, and then kind of slid down not the banister, but the kind of like columns that held up the porch, the beams. And I snuck out through the kitchen window onto the fire escape, which had a landing out. It lived on the second floor. And it was very cold December night. Everything was blue. It was like once in a blue moon, and there was actually a blue moon, and it made everything this ethereal blue. And so he walked out and put his boots on and walked down, trying not to crunch too loud on the crusty snow, to the sidewalk. And it was so eerie out. There was one traffic light blinking down at the end of the street. No traffic, not even a police car. And he seemed to float down the street. He came out and walked out into the sidewalk, and I saw him coming down. And we looked at each other, and we even looked like odd and eerie also. And there was some cat that kind of just wandered across the street, not even in a hurry. And we got down to the back of the shack on the right side, where we could look down because the train is supposed to be heading north. And Paul was in there. We looked in there, and he had his head on his chest with his glasses hanging down on his leather chair, and he was kind of snoozing. And then the phone rang, and it jerked him up, and he answered it. And then we heard off in the distance this loud, mournful whistle and this roar that was coming from way off. You could hear it coming 10 miles away. And we looked down the tracks and we saw this beam of light because the tracks sort of curved around towards the left, and we saw this beam shining way down the end of where the curve began. And not long thereafter, we saw this big, huge, blinding headlight. And it wasn't a matter of like 3 or 4 seconds, and this huge engine comes flying by. And you can see the engineer hanging out the side like they do, and he waved. And it was a strange looking engineer. He had like a yellow engineer hat on, and looked like he had long hair, and he had this crazed look in his eye and this smile, and he flew by. And it was incredible to see. We never seen anything go that fast on the tracks. And it flew by so quick. And, we talked about it the next couple of weeks that we saw it, and we told him, and he goes, "Why didn't you tell me you were there?" Paul said, "I would have let you in." And we thought you would get mad, and we weren't sure it was coming anyway. And years and years later, many years later, it was around the same time, and I walked into the coffee shop down by the train station to get a hot chocolate, and there were all train guys hanging out there, and there was this one guy, you could tell he was the engineer. His back was towards you. He had that striped engineer outfit on, overalls. But the funny thing about it, he had this yellow engineer hat with looked like roses on it or something, and little roses or flowers. And they're laughing and guffawing, and they're walking out past me, and I got to look at the engineer who had this big badge on the front of her cap, said, Express 011, and it said engineer under it on the badge. And he was a very big blonde woman, and she did have these amazing eyes that looked like in surprise most of the time. And the whole story came back to me. I forgot about it for almost like 25, maybe